Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. We'll continue our discussion today about the spring training for Major League Baseball. Talk a little bit more about the NFL and free agent signings and player moves in the offseason. And then we'll finish up today with our intro to the NCAA March Madness tournament with some picks. We'll start where we've been starting the last several weeks with a question about the Royals in spring training. Royals continue to win. Now 14-4, although they did drop both games of a split squad matchups today. 14-4 though, Mike. Does it matter?
I wish it did. Maybe it does. Hopefully today's double loss doesn't matter. They were split squad. Actually, I think 3 of their 4 losses have been split squad losses, so they're very difficult to beat if all the Royals are together. You can also say this is a split squad loss with a lot of missing players from the World Baseball Classic, though I guess maybe the other teams are probably missing players as well, so it's maybe not a unique disadvantage for the Royals, even though maybe we'll talk about it a little later. Some of the Royals are doing pretty well in the WBC as well. But yeah, I think it's not a negative that they're doing well. So that's
Yeah.
I think that's something. Like if they were even, maybe you could say if they were 4-14, that wouldn't be that bad either. But it's it looks worse. And I think at least it seems like you're competitive in most of your games, and like people
Yeah.
are hitting and pitching fairly well, which I guess probably a 14-4 record should indicate that they're hitting slightly, either hitting better and or pitching better than their opponents usually. Um, yeah, I think it's a sign of for optimism, maybe a weak sign for optimism, but I think it's maybe I could be 10% more optimistic about the season than I was before.
Yeah.
And so like I had said they might win. I don't know. I was hoping they would finish around 500, but I was thinking probably they'd win 70 games,
Right.
maybe. And so if I'm 10% more optimistic, maybe I think they're going to win 77 games
Yeah.
if I'm 10, or if
Yeah.
it's by that, so
That's not crazy to think that that's a possibility. That's not.
77-85, that's better than 70-92.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be happy with it. I really just wanted to kind of threaten a 500 record. So if they
Yeah.
do that, it'll be a good season. And even like as we talked about last week, even if they don't, like the season matters very little in the great scheme of
Right.
things. Um, what do you think?
Well, yeah, no, normally you kind of discount spring training wins, but I've been looking through some of the stats from what they've been doing in spring training compared to the rest of the league, and it's kind of hard to argue with them having like, they're 14-4 because they are playing very well. It's not like they've left their starters in so long compared to like, their opponents where um that the stats might get skewed that way too. So I'm really interested in seeing like how they if they keep this up anywhere remotely close to what they're doing now. You ready for a few like spring training stats from where they are?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think this is before you start the sets? Do you think this is a result of Matt Contreras' um, leadership,
I don't know. It's hard to
or the new
understand
pitching coach, or the new
like
bench coaches?
how they've made this big of a change this fast. But it seems to be at all levels though, right? So I mean this is like even like their, second, third, fourth string type guys are seemingly hitting and
Yeah,
making a case for being on the roster.
the Rays magic, I guess.
Yeah,
I
maybe
only recently learned.
it may be that maybe yeah, just that like the players know they have a shot to get to the major league, so maybe they're mentally more prepared for the possibility of actually seeing that dream become a reality, or what. But it's yeah, the numbers are pretty dramatic though, what they've done so far in the spring as a team.
Yeah, I only recently learned it was pronounced Quattraro, not Quattraro,
Oh
uh,
really?
the Royals manager, because I haven't been local, so and I haven't heard anybody talking about it on the radio or anything. But yeah, it's Quattraro,
Traro, okay, all right, let's remember
even
that.
though it looks like Quattraro,
Yeah.
or probably would be in a. I guess that would be. sort of Italian looking,
So that's
with a
what I was
Q
assuming.
instead of it's yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah, according to the Royals media guide, it
Okay.
is Potrero. Um, and I'm looking through right now to see if there are any other or looking for stats. I'm looking for if there are any uh, other players that are pronounced in a way that look strange to me.
Uh,
Looks like most of them are just like traditional Spanish or um, yeah, yeah. Okay.
so here's how the Royals have been doing.
Except Jeffrey Del Rosario, his name is pronounced Jeffrey. Apparently, even though it says like Jeffrey, so I assume that means it's pronounced Jeffrey, even though it's Yefri. If
Really
yeah,
interesting.
so that's the one surprise. Bring me your statistics, and I will comment.
So far in spring training, 18 games. Royals team OPS 924, 70 points higher than the next best team in spring training.
Wow, is that including Florida teams as well?
Yes, all 30 baseball
I
teams.
guess you think Arizona, maybe it's the drier air, the maybe higher altitude
Maybe.
some places.
Okay, so you can think that. We can say, what about just batting average? Yeah, not just
Um,
including home runs. Royals are 311 team batting average, 12 points higher than the next highest team.
oh wow,
Who is also in the is our training mate in
Ooh,
in Arizona.
the Ranger. So it must be something in the surprise water.
Possibly. But the third highest team is Blue Jays, and they're in Florida though. So
The old
they
Grapefruit League.
play in Tampa area, I believe. But so the Royals are first in batting average. They're third in stolen bases.
Hitting for power and uh,
They lead
running for speed.
spring training teams in runs and RBIs. They are third in doubles by only one double back. They lead the spring training teams in triples.
That's not surprising. The Royals always hit a lot of triples. Some
Triples.
of it might be park driven, but I think the Royals have long wanted players that could hit a lot of triples.
Yeah. They have always valued kind of speed and quality of base running too.
Hmm.
But
Maybe
also seem to have some power this year. They are third in spring training for home runs. And they've hit 10 more home runs than their opponents have hit against them in spring
that's good.
training.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, it's not.
29 home runs for the Royals, 19 home runs allowed by the pitching staff.
How is their pitching staff overall compared to their peers in the spring training? Are they as dominant as the hitters, or does it seem like it's mainly a hitting driven?
So they're pretty balanced. They're seventh in the league in ERA,
Okay,
which recently they have not been good at all.
that's out of 30. That's out of 30 teams too, right? Not just in the
30, yeah.
not just in the
Correct. It's a good question.
Texas. And I guess you could say, well, maybe that's also maybe they would be higher even if they were not playing in Arizona and they're playing in the Grapefruit League.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, their ERA may be lower if they were playing there, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
they might be higher ranked. I was thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. But they're only they're eighth fewest walks allowed, which is very rare for a Royals team to be
Yeah.
able to avoid the
Avoid
walks.
walks.
Yeah.
But the strikeouts, I'm sure, is not terribly high.
They are also eighth in
They
strike.
are eighth in
So
strike. That's
they're
actually
actually
very.
striking out players at a higher rate than they have been in the regular season by quite a bit, I think, even too.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So and then their low walk rate has helped bring their whip is fifth in spring training. So it seems like they're pretty well balanced. Um, top tier offense, top to middle tier, with
Pitching.
and pitching. So I mean that gives me more hope than just the spring training record by itself, at least anyway. That's
So you are talking yourself into their spring training performance as meaning something.
Yeah, but maybe not just based on record only though. But yes, I think it may mean more than I have, had it allowed it to mean in previous seasons, because it seemed as though a lot of times the Royals as a team tried to go out and win spring training games because they knew they weren't going to be winning games in the regular season. Sometimes using their closer, their actual closer, like in closer roles against minor league hitters just to make sure the team got the win. It doesn't seem like they're doing that so much in this spring, at least anyway. So it doesn't seem like they're just trying to win games. It seems like they are winning games, but because they're performing well as an entire unit. So I think maybe it actually means more than we typically weight spring training.
Are
Yeah,
you 10% more optimistic like I am? Or are you
maybe,
higher, lower?
maybe. I think possibly. I am. I think maybe. Yeah, maybe they still conservatively. This is the estimate from the beginning of the year, anyway. Uh, yeah, maybe they are nearly a 500 team, which would be nice.
Yeah, it's been a few years, but it seems like World Series was only yesterday to me.
Yeah, the
But
2015 World Series, or
yeah,
the
2015,
or just the most
the
recent
80
World
the
Series.
85 World Series. Yeah, the Royals
Yeah,
World Series victory seems pretty recent, as does their the run of success from those 2 years, and even the year or two surrounding those 2 years, they were still competitive.
yeah,
Um, so that seems fairly recent. I guess it maybe if the Chiefs had not come along and been so dominant, it might have seemed like a longer wait,
yeah,
since we're less reliant on, maybe as Kansas City fans, less reliant on the Royals' success perhaps than ever, because the Chiefs are by far better than they've ever been, at least in our lifetime.
yeah,
And maybe, you know, even objectively, just in their history, since they've only won three Super Bowls and they won two in the last 4 years. This is even better than the AFL Len Dawson teams, and those teams only played against, whether eight AFL teams, 10 AFL teams, something like that.
something like that.
So it wasn't very hard to you know get to the Super Bowl in that period. So
Yeah,
I'm pleasantly optimistic for the Royals. Again, like we said, it doesn't really matter what the Royals do this year.
yeah,
We had an announcement that was recently that you had mentioned to me, that we were surprised that one of the supposed sites of the Royals' new stadium was going to be near our old high school,
not downtown, but
not downtown, across the river from
near
downtown,
downtown.
in North Kansas City, Missouri, on the site of the NKC Pro Bowl, former second home of such luminaries as Bill Johnson and other great bowlers of our recent past. You were a bowler as a younger person? Do you still go bowling ever?
I was there. I was at NKC Pro Bowl like every week for years for youth league.
Yeah,
Most
you like the NKC
years.
Pro Bowl better than either like the King Louis one near closer to our house, or I remember you
Yeah,
didn't like the Antioch lanes. You
yeah,
thought
so
they were too oily. I remember you said that at one point when we
I,
were in like fifth grade or something.
I'd stand by that even now.
And then there's the the Gladstone Bowl up on 72nd Street. Is that still operational?
I don't know. I don't think any of those. I don't know. I don't think any of those are open anymore. Gladstone Bowl might actually be. King Louis is now like a car dealership.
Hmm.
NKC Pro Bowl became an AMF, and then I believe it's just closed now. So I think it's
And now
just
it's a potential site for new Royals Stadium.
yeah,
So I guess that would be kind of a skyline view. Maybe it would sort of be a little bit like
yeah,
the Pittsburgh stadiums, where they aren't quite in downtown Pittsburgh. They're across the river and they can see downtown Pittsburgh.
right.
Although, if you've been to the Pittsburgh stadiums, they're actually closer to the river and closer to downtown Pittsburgh than the Kansas City ones. If that was the site of the Kansas City one, I don't see that happening. Being in North Kansas City, especially once they said we're going to move downtown. I don't know if
Yeah,
moving to I don't know if moving to Northtown, even the Northtown's kind of become the Brooklyn of the
I
area.
guess. Yeah,
The hipsters and the pop up restaurants and things like that. But
breweries, distilleries,
hmm,
barbecue barbecue places. There's been kind of a big growth of different places in that area. It's been
yeah, it's a far cry from our uh, days in North Kansas City. But
yeah,
I guess it's looking it's on its way up. We can't focus on nostalgia and just the dives and kind of burnt out industrial district of
yeah.
our childhood.
Yeah, it's so yeah, the site's like just one of 5 that are left in the running. I think there were like 14 that they had originally talked about um, being the top contenders for the site for the Royal Stadium. But it made the cut down to the final
Cut
5.
top five.
It's interesting at least. I'm not sure that would it be able to handle the traffic
Well,
as it
I
is
don't.
now,
The
but it may
streets
have
are
time.
the
So
streets are very wide in North
yeah,
Kansas City for the amount of traffic because most people park they park because they have that kind of angled parking through much
yeah,
of North Kansas City. And fourth and I-35 is close. If they finish the 435 before the new 430, not 435, 635, the little loop
yeah.
downtown. Is that finished yet, or is it still kind of
It's open all the way.
yeah? Maybe
Well,
with the
it's the 169 bridge is what they're working on
169 bridge.
now.
Okay,
It's going to be closed for like another 2 years, I think. So
yeah.
we're ready to
I,
go.
I think if it's not downtown, it's going to be West Bottoms. Would be where I would.
Yeah,
Is West Bottoms still in the running, or is it?
I don't. They haven't announced any of the 5 sites. Somebody, I guess, asked the Royals about the North Kansas City site because North Kansas City said something about it,
Hmm.
and then the team confirmed that it is one of the 5.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's the only site that anyone actually knows anything about technically, officially. Um, was from that anyway. But I mean, I mean, there are multiple ways to approach that site from, you know, from the south or from the north, and then east and west. Or there are highways that run alongside it from either direction too. So like
Hmm.
you could possibly like maybe you'd probably have to do some work, but
Yeah, Burlington's a pretty big street,
yeah,
and it's got bridges that go there. It's possible. I think it might also like it might be a compromise between the people that were upset about it being exactly downtown
yeah.
versus the people who just wanted it closer in.
So that may be the site where they'd be able to have more space and they may be able to have more like tailgating possibility. Or if it's downtown, it's unlikely that they would have enough surface parking to, use as a tailgating lots.
Yeah, they have to use like garages and stuff, and that's not the most pleasant for.
Yeah, it kind of kill that concept of being able to tailgate at games. And
Yeah,
there are
I
still a lot
guess
of Royals
it's
fans that
not as important at Royals games as it is at Chiefs games anyway, but still, there's the idea of it.
there are some that do that still, and there are a lot more that tailgate. You know, when there are a lot of fans there, at least anyway. But yeah, so not sure what will happen to that like whole culture if they do build a downtown stadium. So
It does seem like that's where they're going, though, right? Is there any? possibility that they're going to stay at Kaufman?
It doesn't seem like that. I think the Chiefs are probably going to want a stadium too, and I think it makes sense if the Royals leave, they could do the construction where the old Royal Stadium would be for a new Chiefs stadium without having to like interrupt play or worry about that.
And to build on the storied legacy of GEHA Field.
Yes, yeah.
I guess it won't even be GEHA Field at Arrowhead anymore. It'll be GEHA Field next to
Yes,
Arrowhead, the
adjacent to
former
Arrow.
Arrowhead. Yeah.
Hopefully
I hope
that's what they call it.
I hope it's I would hope it actually returns to call it New Arrowhead Stadium.
New
And
Arrow.
then yeah, and do away with GEHA. But since they're winning the Super Bowl, do they need this, whatever $5 million a year that GEHA is paying to to the stadium, when I'm sure they're increasing that kind of revenue with exposure worldwide by winning multiple
Yeah.
Super Bowls and having the most recognizable now NFL player on their team now that Tom Brady is retired. So,
Yeah. And another player that hosts Saturday Night Live sometimes.
yeah, Travis Kelce hosts the Saturday Night Live. Before we get to the football, do we want to mention the World Baseball Classic? Are you following it? Have
Just
you
a
watched any
little.
games?
I've watched a little bit, but not too much though. My question for you though is, do you like five-way ties in divisions?
I do. It's like this kind of 5-star tiebreaker that they have to. I don't. How did they break it? Was it total
I'm not
runs?
sure.
Runs like a run differential, maybe sort of World Cup style.
Maybe. I don't
Home
I'm not sure.
runs. He runs allowed. Yeah. So yeah, one of the brackets, Italy and what was the other team that advanced out of
But
that? Cuba advanced out of the two bracket. So there's still one bracket left to be decided. The other six of the or two brackets left to be decided. Four of the semifinal spots have been picked. The United States is in the catbird seat for one of the other ones. I think they only if they beat Colombia, or even if they lose, I think there's still a possibility that they can make it.
possible, yeah.
But the
I think if
one
Canada
division,
loses, then they could still
yeah,
be done. Yeah.
one division is a little tougher though to predict. And based on our early betting for the World Baseball Classic Championships, it'll be extremely decisive since we each picked two teams. One team that was very short odds, one team that was mid odds, I would guess we'd say,
Yeah.
to win. And in that bracket, Venezuela been has already advanced.
Hmm.
I think it's the Miami bracket, and
Yes.
we have Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. Only one of those teams will advance. I picked Puerto Rico, you picked the Dominican, and if only Cuba, your other team, has made it. My other team, I guess the United States, is still a likely possibility. So I guess it's possible that both of your teams will be in it and both of mine will be out. Uh,
Possible.
it's also possible that I will have two and you will have one, or you will have two and I will have one uh, left in the final four or final eight. So exciting times here at the Morning Trick Power Hour. Are you still confident in your Dominican Republic pick?
And they actually play each other for the final spot tomorrow night, which would be Wednesday night. Yeah, or does that mean is there enough interest in that for you to watch that game tomorrow night? Because it's you versus me.
What channel would it be on?
It's on one of the Fox Sports, I think.
Fox Sports. So maybe I have that as an app. I could watch it. I got Fox Sports as for my Super Bowl watching, since I don't have cable right now. So
Yeah, I think I'll tune in.
I do have ESPN Plus. I also have Paramount Plus, since I got those for watching football. And I've been too lazy to unsubscribe while football season's not in session. So they're costing me $20 a month all told. NBC is the same way. I have Peacock as well, but yeah, so I can watch all the March Madness games, which we'll talk about later. But before we do that, do we want to move on to football?
Sure.
We kind of mentioned the Chiefs a bit. There is some big Chiefs news. We talked about Orlando Brown being released or allowed to kind of pursue free agency, as was Frank Clark. It seems like perhaps the Chiefs maybe this week have signed both of their replacements. We got a tackle from Jacksonville, Jawan Taylor, who was historically a right tackle in Jacksonville, who is possible may switch over to the right side, especially since may switch maybe either play right side or switch over to the left side, especially it's up in the air now because we don't know where Brown's going. And Andrew Wiley has already gone to the Commanders, like a lot of his Chiefs compatriots have gone to Eric Bieniemy's team.
Hmm.
And we also picked up Charles Amenahue of the 49ers, a youngish defensive end on a very talented team. And perhaps he is the new Frank Clark. What do you think of those signings? Do you think Chiefs are done in their big free agency splashes, or is there still more to come?
Yeah, they seem, I guess, relatively reasonably priced compared to who they're replacing, but they are still pretty pricey though.
I think Amenahue was 4.5 million for three. Wait, no, it was I'm sorry, 2 year for 20 million, so 10 million. He had 4.5 sacks last year, so he's
Yeah.
signing. He had six. If you include the playoffs, he had 6.5 sacks. But
Yeah.
that's playing on a line that has a lot of good players on it. He probably had to rotate. And according to Arrowhead Pride, only 5 NFL players had a higher pass rush win percentage than Amenahue. Those were Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Zadarius Smith, and Trey Hendrickson, who were all very, very, very good players, all pro level players, most of them. Um,
Hmm.
and so number 6 was Amenahue, and he was so maybe he is an up and comer who doesn't have the sack numbers yet, but perhaps has
Yeah.
some. So 10
Like,
million,
I guess
and then
technically Frank Clark didn't have a whole lot of sacks for the team in the regular season, although he certainly showed up for the playoff games always. That was
mhm. Yeah,
seemed
he was
like
he's
his
third, I think third all time postseason sacks.
I think so.
And it's possible. I would say I wouldn't rule it out that maybe Clark would be back on a cheaper deal depending on what he sees in free agency.
Hmm.
He's probably not going to get a huge contract, and if he can get similar-ish to what the Chiefs maybe they offer, only 1 million or 2 less a season than his highest team, especially that team's Texans or somebody like that. Perhaps he would come
Sure.
back. I don't know. Do
And they
you
still have the
think?
draft too, so
Yeah,
they may be looking at other players at the same positions even to
they
to the
do need
flyer.
more defensive line help. I think a lot of their guys might be gone. They've
Hmm.
also re-signed to Treshaun Wharton, who's been injured most of last year. I don't. It also seems like the Chiefs, if Brown doesn't come back, the Chiefs are gonna need another tackle, whether it's left or right. So that could come from the draft. That could come from free agency. They probably want wide receiver help. They probably want what else? More, I guess, D-line we mentioned, and just kind of placements or backups at pretty much
Yeah.
every other position. They don't have a lot of needs really. You might say I've heard rumors that for free agents that Adam Thielen maybe
Mhm.
released by the Vikings, maybe a target that might be a good replacement for somebody like Juju if he goes elsewhere. Um, yeah,
I heard
it's
recently they talked about Lazard as a possibility wide receiver, but sounds like he's headed to the Jets.
yeah, he was signed by the Jets, who really, really, really want Aaron Rodgers. But
Yeah.
picked up Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. That's why we got Aaron Lazard probably. Uh, Lazard got a 4 year, 44 million deal, 22 guarantees, 11 million a year, which is a decent price. But it seems like if unless you're a really, really elite receiver, you're not going to earn a ton. Uh,
Mhm.
it's one of those things where basically with all this money being sunk into quarterbacks now, it's kind of maybe lowered, at least relatively, some of the other positions
Yeah.
on the field, unless maybe a tackle, maybe a defensive and very high end wide receiver. Um, uh, Other offensive linemen, I think a guard for the is it Lindstrom? Is that his name? For Atlanta, he signed uh, for 5 years, $105 million, which was actually uh, um, higher. Chris Lindstrom, yeah, actually higher than Jawan Taylor, who's going to be a tackle. Usually, guards interior linemen get less than linemen, but he's
Hmm.
going to make 21 million, and I guess Jawan Taylor's going to make about 20 million per year, which
Wow.
is about what maybe that Brown would have been offered had it been a franchise tag. And I guess that means probably Brown wanted, I don't know, 23, 25,
Yeah.
something like that. I don't you can It's hard to
He would have
say
been
if
in
if
that
that's
area with the uh franchise tag, I guess, right? It would have been
yeah.
somewhere around there. So yeah. Their replacement is cheaper than that, but we don't quite know what his performance is going to be until it gets here, right? So
And we don't, yeah, like you said, we don't even know if he's actually Brown's replacement or Andrew uh Wiley's replacement on the right side, because he's
right.
largely just played right tackle. But that's also what Brown, when we got Brown from the Ravens, he was mostly a right tackle as well, but wanted to play left. So it's hard to say what they're going to do with him. Maybe there have been some other big names in the last week that have signed uh, deals. Maybe uh, one of the biggest is the signing of Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders. What do you think of that signing? Is that
It's
is that an upgrade over Derek Carr? Is it a lateral move?
it's probably not an upgrade. It's probably not great for him either. I don't necessarily think, but because I don't know that the Raiders fans are going to be happy with more of a game manager type quarterback. I think they like the sort of big play potential from Carr, but didn't like the results a lot of the times, right?
Yeah,
So
I think he had been trying to shed his image as game manager and was throwing it deeper. But I think last year he had more interceptions than he had ever had in his
hmm,
career. So yeah, it's um and backup quarterback Jared Stidham left, and he became a Denver Bronco. So for a pretty high backup salary, $8 or $10 million a year, I think,
yeah.
um, if I remember correctly. But is there so we have
I
is
hadn't heard that.
Stidham?
I didn't know that Stidham had left. I didn't.
Yeah, Stidham signed it was 2 year $10 million, so it was only five, but
Yeah,
still a decent salary for backup. Is there a possibility that Stidham becomes the Broncos starter if Russell Wilson continues to fade?
I think it would take an injury to bench Russell Wilson. I wouldn't, even if he's like completely terrible. I can't imagine that they would actually like make the move to anybody else. As much money as they're paying him and as many draft picks as they gave up for Wilson, it's probably his job unless he's like seriously injured. Is that, wouldn't you think?
I think so, but it's nice to think about. I don't really like
Just
Russell
like the
Wilson.
concept of Denver
Yeah, his personality,
playing
like
so
even
poorly,
though yeah, yeah, I
or him,
think
or just him personally.
Russell Wilson personally, I kind of just, given all the stuff that's come out recently about him trying to get his coaches fired and having like his own like little entourage that follows him around in his own
Yeah,
office and parking space and things like that, where he's like thinks of himself as this kind of celeb, like he's like a Kardashian type or something like that
yeah,
on the football team, which yeah, I don't really care for. It's a little, yeah, it's a little bit like what Aaron Rodgers, I think, has had more success than Wilson has, so maybe he deserves it a little bit more than Wilson does. But I I am so I'm not a fan of Russell Wilson. I'm actually less of a Russell Wilson fan than I am a Broncos fan. I don't really like the Broncos, but I'm like you. I don't really have anything against the Broncos because it's just the
hmm.
location. If I were from Denver, I would probably be a Broncos fan. So would you, even though you really detest the Broncos. It's all an accident of geography. The teams that we support, but I think of the teams that I like the least, the Cowboys are probably up there, maybe as number one. But
Yeah.
it's still a fairly
Is that because of the team itself, or because of like the marketing around them being America's team that you rebel against?
more that it's more that marketing. I think
Yeah.
maybe the team. It's well, I think the Jerry Jones himself maybe has as part of that, but it's always kind of been that way for some reason since they were I guess they were popular in the '70s and then they parlayed it onward and they had a good little decent run in the a very good run, maybe more than a decent run, a very good run in the 1990s, but haven't done much since. So it's it's a little bit of an unusual, and also I guess like the way that Dallas has somehow engineered that they will play in the NFC East, even though they are nowhere near the East Coast, simply because they want to play against the big media market teams, and so that's where they play.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense, but it just it's based on kind of historically kind of accidental geography when the NFL realigned or put them in, and then they end up changing it like they did with the other teams. I think that Buccaneers at one point actually played in the AFC West their first year, and then they
Yeah.
moved out, and then that's when the Seahawks came or something like that. So it was they've done that. They've had like these little odd. I think the Atlanta Falcons for a while in the NFC West when the Cowboys were in the East, and it's just this strange kind of uh, Dallas centricness, and I don't quite understand it. They have a lot of
Yeah.
money, but the team is not very good, and it hasn't been for a very long time. So I guess that would be given the kind of outsized power they have among the league, that would probably be my least favorite team. Well, do you have a least? Is Denver your least favorite?
Yeah. But that's just because of, yeah, rivalries with, yes, the team of my region. Yes.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I guess I have rivalries with the other AFC West teams, but I don't dislike any of them. Like
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for the Chargers. I um I enjoy the Raiders kind of shenanigans. I
Yeah.
think in some ways the Cowboys are just as bad as the Raiders, but the Cowboys don't ever really get that kind of mocking that in the same way that the Raiders
Yeah.
do.
Well, the Raiders are kind of the heels, right? Of the like the from the pro wrestling world.
Yeah,
It's kind of that where they're sort of play the villain role, but they like enjoy being booed and stuff like that, right? It's at least
yes.
a little entertaining anyway. But I think I used to dislike them a lot more than I dislike the Broncos, but they've
It
been
might be I guess because the
so
Broncos have been
bad for so
better.
long.
Is
It's
that
like,
part of it?
yeah.
Um,
I definitely did not like Elway though. I thought he seemed very obnoxious all the time to me. That's where my dislike of the Broncos came from initially.
yeah, the Raiders have won 4 playoff games since the year 2000.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
How many games have playoff games have the Dallas Cowboys won since the year 2000?
What is it, just one or is it two?
Also 4. They got
Oh,
they got their 4th this year.
okay.
Um, the Raiders last playoff win was since the year 2000 was actually the year 2002. Uh, so they won 4 playoff games between 2000 and 2002, and so the Cowboys just recently tied the Raiders, who have not had a playoff win in 20 seasons, full seasons now, and they
Yeah.
still have as many playoff wins since the year 2000 as the Cowboys. So I think that's saying something about the success of those two teams. But it's a anyway. Uh, another another signing not that was I thought a couple signings that were interesting. We have Sam Darnold. that went to the 49ers. Do you think he has a chance at starting as the 49ers quarterback over Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? He was a very, perhaps a more heralded, highly touted draft pick
Mm-hmm.
even than Lance was. He had more success in college. He was probably, I think, generally agreed to be a more polished player coming out of college than Lance was for sure. Do you think Darnold can turn his career around in San Francisco?
I don't know that he's going to get an opportunity to really play. I don't. I'd be surprised if he does. I saw recently too that Purdy did have um his surgery, but didn't need the full Tommy John surgery. They were able to make like a brace, I guess, essentially to avoid doing the full like Tommy John version of that ACL repair. So I think he's even expected to be back before the regular season starts. So I would have to assume that Darnold would be third on the list as for the quarterback position.
Well,
But they, went four deep last season, so it's always, it's one of those things. I think they need bodies to fill those spots.
does this change your mind? So Darnold was, of course, the number 3 overall pick in 2018, year after Patrick Mahomes. He was Lance was also the 3rd overall pick, I think, in 2020. I guess that would be. Darnold is actually only 25 years old,
Okay.
which is, I believe, younger than Stetson Bennett coming out of the draft, the Georgia quarterback,
Yeah.
or at least, and he was
I believe already has his AARP card.
he was 4-2 in his last 6 games as a starter for the Carolina Panthers. 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in those games. That's a stat line worthy of Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones got signed for $40 million. I think I don't know if I'd rather have Sam Darnold than Daniel Jones, but Darnold was a more highly touted prospect than I think Jones was, even though Jones was kind of a draft day darling.
Yeah.
Do you think that does that convince you at all that Darnold has a chance to win the starting job, or at
I
least be the week 1 starter if Purdy is still?
If Purdy's hurt and Lance plays awful in the preseason, that's like about the only scenario I can think of that he would end up there, unless there's a trade that we don't know what's that's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks. Do you think he has a chance to be the starter?
I do. I actually think he's probably the best quarterback on the 49ers roster. I think I
True.
think I think he's because I think it's San Francisco has shown you only need kind of a average quarterback at best. I
Yeah.
think Purdy is an average quarterback, NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
He's probably proven that he could be. Uh, I think Lance, I don't know. Lance could be a great player, but he's as likely going to be a huge bust. And I think Darnold has a lot of the upside that Lance has still, but we've already kind of seen his downside, and that's like
Yeah.
below average starter. So
Right.
and I don't even know if Lance is a below average starter on his downside. So it's one of those things. So I guess he has a higher ceiling to me than Brock Purdy does, and maybe the same floor as Purdy from what we've seen.
So are you penciling it in? Darnold's the starter opening day,
Yeah, I'll pencil it in. Pencil it in. I think
or are you going to go ahead and switch to pen?
I'm not gonna switch. I'm not gonna put it on 10. I think there would be a little bit of a riot if in San Francisco if Purdy was healthy and they decided to bring Sam Darnold and put him in as the starter.
Yeah.
So I think barring uh Purdy's being ready to start, I think Darnold has a very good. And so I would say Purdy. I would guess Purdy's probably only a 25% likely to be ready by the start of the season. I don't
Because
know.
of potential because of the injury still.
because of the injury and because he
Yeah.
got his surgery pretty late. And so I think they probably want to bring him back slow.
Yeah.
And uh, I don't know. I in that 49ers offense, you don't want like a you don't necessarily like I think you don't necessarily need a dynamic playmaker who Lance is trying to be. I think if he just can be a
Game manager type.
game manager, and maybe that's what Darnold is. And
Maybe.
I don't know. And I'm talking myself into it simply just because I want to be a contrarian.
I was curious and just managed to look it up. The 49ers depth chart on ESPN, they do have Darnold as third.
It's third.
Does that are you reaching for your eraser?
No, I still have it.
Your penciled in opening day, first game, starter, Sam Darnold, San Francisco.
I was reading I just looked up Sam Darnold starter 49ers. The Draft Network says that perhaps he could be uh, the the starter,
Yeah, I mean, there are scenarios where
and that's why he signed with San Francisco over other teams because he probably would have been a more penned, maybe in inked in backup
yeah.
for another team than this team.
But I mean, chances are he will get a chance to play at some level during the season because we know that San Francisco's quarterbacks are injury prone now, right? As that seems
Yeah.
to be the case.
And is that I wonder is that I don't know if we talked about this before, maybe we did. Is that a product of Shanahan's offense? Because it seems like the 49ers are often injured at quarterback. And you can't quite say, well, it's just because he has a lot of injury prone players, but like Jimmy G's been hurt a lot. Now have Lance season ending injury. Purdy had a season ending injury. Um, you know, it's either really kind of bad luck or maybe it's a pattern of I don't know blocking schemes or something that they don't protect
Maybe.
quarterback as much.
Yeah. I don't know.
Something to keep an eye on, maybe.
Well, I think we'll have to see what happens this coming season too to really tell if it is something to do with the play calling and stuff like that too. Yeah, I don't remember them being that injured in previous seasons. Do you?
There was one of the years that maybe 5 years ago, um, 2018. Uh, they had that's when they traded for uh, Jimmy G, and in 2018, that was the so okay. So this goes back. It looks like to Kaepernick. So when they switched from Alex Smith in 2012 during the Super Bowl season to Kaepernick. That wasn't because of that was because of injury to Alex Smith. This was long before Shanahan got there. It was injury to Alex Smith, sort of. But then Alex Smith came back, and then Kaepernick kept his job. Kaepernick was healthy the next uh, 2 seasons after that. But in 2015, Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert began sharing the starts, probably because Kaepernick got hurt. So
Yeah.
2015, Kaepernick has 8 starts, Gabbert has 8 starts. 2016, Kaepernick has 11 starts, Gabbert has 5 starts. 2017, Brian Hoyer has 6 starts, CJ Beathard has 5 starts, and then that's when they traded for Garoppolo. Garoppolo finished the year with 5 starts. So they had 3 starting quarterbacks that year.
Hmm.
That might be ineffectiveness as much as injury. But
Yeah,
the next year,
I think some of that was performance
but
based.
the next year it was Garoppolo got hurt and he played 3 games. Nick Mullins played 5. Played Beathard played 5. Mullins played 8. 2019, we have Garoppolo playing all 16 games. So
Yeah.
that was a healthy. That was also when they went to the Super Bowl, right? Yeah, that was when they went to the Super Bowl. In 2020, Mullins started 8, Garoppolo 6, Beathard 2. 2021, Garoppolo 15 to Lance's 2. I think that was mainly because they wanted to see what Lance
Hmm.
And this past season, Garoppolo 10, Purdy 5, Lance 2, because of injuries. And you also saw Josh Johnson in the playoff game. Seems like they've had a lot of, even though Garoppolo has been like the main starter, there's been like, since he's been in town, you threw out that first season, there have been 13, 23, 25, 32 games over 5 years that he hasn't started. So um, I don't know. It's a lot of, and it's not like they've only had two quarterbacks; they've had three a lot of those times. So it
Yeah.
seems like there's a lot of injury. Maybe it's maybe something in the water in San Francisco or something. But it's or in Santa Clara, wherever they play now. Is that it's a place that's I don't know if other teams have had that. At least other good teams have had such kind of
Yeah.
star-crossed quarterbacks.
Yeah, I can't really think of anybody that's had that much rotation. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you think of teams that have, it's like the Browns or the Texans.
Yeah. The other teams that are much, much worse.
Yeah, or even like the Broncos, maybe the last uh, few seasons have had stuff like that. But it's the Saints, you could maybe say as well. But
Yeah.
those teams have struggled a lot more than the Jets, Giants, that sort of that caliber of team. They've it's a
But not Super Bowl contending teams.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other NFL news we want to talk about, or should we get on to our basketball?
I think
Because we also have Andy Dalton into Carolina, I guess, to replace.
yeah.
Um, did we talk about the draft? We talk about Carolina's moving up in the draft. Did we
We didn't
mention
talk
that?
about that. We should mention
So,
it very quickly, yeah.
yeah. So the number one overall pick was uh, possessed during the offseason mostly by the Chicago Bears, but they have their starting quarterback, it seems, in Justin Fields. So they traded for the ninth pick overall to the Panthers, and they got a bunch of other picks in return.
Yeah, two firsts, 2 seconds,
And then also
and
DJ Moore,
yeah.
right, as well, wide receiver. So do you think the Bears made a good move in trading? Do you think the Panthers made a good move in trading up? How do you assess this?
It seems really bright from the Bears' perspective to have made the trade. I think it should shore up their faith seemingly in Justin Fields, and they actually got him a receiver to throw to too. I heard the stat, I guess, this week that DJ Moore has more receiving yards already than anyone in the Bears organization has had in their career.
Hmm.
So from the wide receiver position, that seems pretty amazing to me. They have been a run and defense oriented team for more or less their entire franchise existence, but it just seems impressive that they would have not had a wide receiver with significant yardage in a career.
Yeah, it's just well, they had Allen Robinson for a few years recently. He was the Jaguar, and then like kind of was thought, well, he went to the Rams. He had a pretty good season with them, but he's kind of fallen off. Yeah, they haven't had probably since who was the last great Bears
Well, they've had some really good
wide
like punt
receiver?
returners,
Yeah,
but they haven't really necessarily been great receivers though. Like Hester, right?
yeah. David Hester was but he was a little bit like Dante, a little bit like Dante Hall was. They thought
Right.
we could if he was a great returner. If we get him on the field more, he can be even more valuable. But he never quite made it. I'm looking right now at um, the Bears' history. They have only um, looks like 17 seasons in their history where one of their receivers has over 1,000 yards.
That's pretty crazy.
So their last one, Allen Robinson, 2020, Allen Robinson, 2019, Alshon Jeffrey, 2014, Alshon Jeffrey, 2013, Brandon Marshall, 2013, Brandon Marshall 2012. And you have to go all the way back to Marty Booker 2002, 2001 Marty Booker, 1999 Marcus Robinson, not to be confused with DeMarcus Robinson.
Yes.
Curtis Conway, you might remember that name from 1996. That's been a while. Jeff Graham, I don't remember him at all. 1995. 1995 Curtis Conway again. Then you have to go back all the way to 1970. Dick Gordon, 1964. Johnny Morris, 1961. You might know this name, like Ditka, 56 Harlan Hill, 54 Harlan Hill. So yeah, that's a. So they've been. That's in 70 seasons almost. They've had 17 1,000-yard receivers, and that's Chicago's cold, but like it's not.
It's not
Green Bay
impossible to
has
throw the ball there.
Green Bay has had big receivers, and
Sure.
other cold weather teams have had pretty good ones. But yeah, it's a I guess it's a running town, and they like to run the football, and that's why they've not won anything for almost 40 years, because you can't win by running the football anymore. And I think
Mm.
I think the playoffs, and I think we've proven that, even though smart dumb teams still think, oh, it's defense and the running game that wins games, but no, it's
Yeah.
not. It's maybe defense can help, but it's on the offensive side, it's passing that wins the game, and then maybe you grind up the clock with the run at the end, but it's not.
Right.
It's a different ball game. So
Plus, it's more exciting to have like the big play potential, and you just don't really get that potential with pure running game. But yeah, I think the Bears have a lot of needs. It's not just that they need one position, and the number one draft pick overall doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get any help outside of that at that one position, and that one guy can get injured too. So you're at least giving yourself a better chance of filling the needs that you have by expanding the roster of players you get in that opening.
I think so. I think it's a good trade
through the draft, and cheaply then too through the draft. So this seems like a really smart move for them, with a chance to like rebuild the team, maybe take a year or two off of a rebuild, basically, more or less, right? I mean, if you get the number one pick, you're pretty much considered, I guess, rebuild.
Yeah, and this is gonna be Fields' third year. I actually just looked up on a whim to see how many 1,000-yard receiving seasons the Panthers have had in their history. So I think they've only been around since the mid '90s.
Yeah,
they have 18 1,000-yard seasons, one more than what the Bears have over 70 years. So in less than 30, they have more. Yeah, DJ Moore has 3 of those 1,000-yard seasons, which I think would tie him for the most in Bears history.
Yeah.
Steve Smith has the most in Carolina history, of course. He had 8 or so.
So what is Moore's? Do you have the stats there? Can you look at who the receiving leader is for the Bears, and how many yards Moore has for his career?
Yeah, so Moore, his career, he has 5,752 yards in his career. He had 941 yards receiving last year.
Oh, so just missed the
888. No, it was 888. He had 941 total yards. He had a couple of 60 yards rushing or something. So he had he's 5,201 receiving yards, 5,752 total yards. So 5,201 receiving yards. He has in his career looking up Chicago Bears receiving stats 2022, and in terms of receiving yards last year, Cole Kmet was the leader with 544.
Yikes.
And I remember I had Cole Kmet on my fantasy team.
Yeah,
one of my tight ends, kind of lower pick. I dropped him at some point because he was doing so terribly. And
yeah,
he ended up with 544. Darnell, of the wide receivers, Darnell Mooney had 493. Second was Equanimous St. Brown with 323. So not many at all. So they have Chase Claypool now. He didn't really have a great start, but it's hard to kind of work your way in. Byron Pringle is there. He was injured, but it was not very high up.
Was Claypool was a late addition too, wasn't he? Didn't he come over
Yeah, he got
at the
traded from
deadline?
Pittsburgh. Yeah,
Yeah.
N'Keal Harry. I don't remember him being on the Bears. He was, I guess, injured or something or released. I'm not sure. A former high round draft pick from the Patriots who never panned out. So yeah, I think having a established receiver in DJ Moore, even if I don't think of him as one of the elite receivers, big, but that could help Fields. Although you could say, well, Fields was good because he ran the football, not because he passed the football. It seems like he's going to have to throw it some just to save his own body and to kind of keep up with the rest of the league. Should we move from the NFL to March Madness?
Yeah, I think so. Oh,
So
I,
that's
I just found the career Bears receiving leader was just over 5,000 yards,
in, to,
5,059
in his career
career
ever.
total for anybody in the Bears organization. The most receiving yards for a career with the Bears, 50-59.
Is it Ditka?
Johnny Morris,
Oh, Johnny Morris. I remember him a little bit. I think he played.
1958 to 1967. That's
I
right.
don't remember. I remember the name. Or
Yeah.
actually, I remember. I was thinking of a different Johnny Morris who might have played
Looks like
the Detroit Lions.
looks like Walter Payton was third.
Where's Ditka? I want to see where Ditka is.
Well, this is not in order though. So Ditka was sixth in receiving receptions. 45-49 was the yardage though. So let's see, that'd be 2, so 3, 4, maybe sixth, I guess.
I see him on my. I think fifth.
This list is not sortable, so
Yeah, mine. I have Johnny Morris, Harlan Hill, Alshon Jeffrey, Walter Payton fourth, Mike Ditka fifth, according to.
fifth. Okay.
And then Curtis Conway. So yeah, that's some.
But I think that is really impressive that yeah, that they just traded for a guy who would be their career yardage leader in receiving had he had those yards for the Bears, right?
Yeah,
He's not in DJ Moore's not that old though, is he?
no, he's maybe 20 uh uh 6 or something. You could something like that. I was just thinking, probably the Chiefs have had almost as many tight end 1,000 yard seasons as
Yeah.
Bears have had total 1,000 yard seasons. I think Kelsey is that 7 or 8 now.
Yeah, something like that.
Gonzalez probably had 4 or 5, and
Yeah.
maybe there's some other, maybe not, maybe it's not quite just tight ends. Right? Yeah, I don't. It's a um, yeah. How about so we want to talk basketball?
Sure.
Sure.
Brackets are all set.
Brackets are set. I think we had the first four. Did they play tonight?
Tonight, tomorrow, I think.
That
But
tomorrow? Yeah. So by Thursday, when this airs, we will have
64 will be set.
the 64 will be set. We have the first day results of the first four.
So the first two games were played. Yeah, so Pitt beat Mississippi State. So Pitt becomes the 11 seed and will face Iowa State.
And Texas A&M Corpus Christi beat Southeast Missouri State.
Yes.
75.
What I was going to ask you this before we get into like specifics in the bracket. what do you think about play-in games for seeds other than 16? Is it strange to you to have a play-in game at an 11 seed?
It is, but I understand why they did it because they wanted to, I think there were more conferences that were added, or like they wanted more at-large berths. And I think you have, I think if you're seated below 13, I think it used to be 13 as well, but I think you can be a at-large team and get a 13 now. But
Yeah.
it used to only be like the conference winner of some like very small, not terribly good conference to get those really really low seats. So I guess they wanted not to exclude the little guys, but to include more of the better teams. And it's a little strange. Why pick 11? Why not pick 12? Why not pick 13?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make much sense to me, really. But
Yeah.
whatever. They wanted 68 teams for some reason because they got these two extra games. I guess because the city of Dayton wanted extra games or something, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really make much sense. I guess they would say, well, 128 teams is too many. Maybe 96 is also too many or something. They can give half the teams a bye, or a number of teams. Too many teams will get buys that way, and you can't. I think also they wanted people to be able to make brackets still, and
Yeah.
be able to
But you don't
gamble.
fill those in when you fill in brackets. You don't
Yeah, nobody
those
cares. Yeah,
play-in games. Yeah.
maybe some pools do, but most of the ones because you don't have time. You don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to
Yeah.
do it all. So it's silly, but I guess it doesn't hurt anything, and usually those teams are not going to win anyway. So maybe they'll
Yeah.
win one game, but yeah. Do you like to play in games?
I mean, not really. I mean, I don't usually watch them. I don't. Yeah, I don't even end up watching those
I don't
games.
know when the last time I watched a play-in game was. It's been years. I sometimes will take time off to watch a lot of the first day or two of the tournament if I'm not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, and I
But
haven't watched quite as much as I used. I used to watch. I used to bring a TV into the office or the lab and would have it on, and for the entire day. But it's not quite as easy to watch the games as it was before.
because a lot of them are cabled now, so you can only
Yeah,
watch the CB.
cable, and you can only watch the one. They don't like rotate through them as rapidly, or
Yeah, if you have because they have one for each channel now. There are four.
yeah.
So if you have, I guess if you have Paramount Plus, like I do, another Paramount Plus plug, I guess you can watch any games at once on your.
But then, I mean, I would still have to use my computer with my other monitor. I wouldn't use a TV anymore. I guess is the main.
Yeah, you wouldn't bring in a TV
Yeah.
with a Roku or something Fire Stick.
Yep. Yep. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
But since even though we're not doing the Roku or Fire Stick or bringing TVs
Yeah.
around with us, carrying them around like a boombox, we are uh, we each have so far created two brackets that we
Yeah.
will kind of roll off against each other. But to refrain from boring our viewers to death by endlessly discussing
Going
each one
through.
of our bracket picks, we
Yeah.
have we had two brackets. I think we had somewhat similar ways of making these two brackets, at least compared to each other. Um, and we have Final Four teams picked from these brackets. Um, and one of the ways we picked was a kind of more straightforward teams we think have a good shot at winning. We're going to pick to advance. And then we have a kind of bleeding heart kind of homer bracket, where we think, oh, the teams that we like uh, or are local to us are going to do well, if not win the whole thing. And so we'll compare those results to each other. I think we should also have a bracket where we just have the chalk bracket as the control group,
Yep.
uh, and
Or the or
see
the
how
all upset bracket.
the all upset. So 16 seeds go
Yeah.
on. I think that's too ridiculous to me. I
No.
think
It would be
if
worth 0 point. That's the control on the other side, though, right?
control, if you want the control on the other end, we can do the
It
control on
should
the
be
other end.
worth 0 points, but I don't think we really need to make it because it's going to be 0 points, right?
Well, like the 12, like
You
a 12.
won't, there won't be you won't get any big points
You won't
unless
get any Final Four. I said some of those first round teams, you might get as many as because sometimes the 10-7s and the 9-8s they can go either way.
yeah,
6 and 11 usually
of
can really
course.
go either way. So 5-12, of course, is notorious as an upset uh thing. So like usually there's going to be at least one 13 seed that wins. Uh, Maybe even one of the 14 or higher seeds.
Hmm.
Or lower. I don't know if you want to call them higher seeds or lower seeds. 14, 15, or 16
Higher number
seeds.
seed.
Higher number of lower in rank. So
Yes,
we're doing it ordinally or cardinally. We have
exactly.
to. I tend to think of one as the high seed and 16 as the low seed in
Yes.
my world. Um,
I think as long as you define what you mean by it, then if you continue using it, you should always follow that with
yeah,
the same meaning. All right.
yeah. So unless stated otherwise, we will go ordinally for high or low here on the Warning Track Power Hour. So we want to announce our final four picks, and we're incorporating our old betting strategies into them. We looked at on FanDuel what their odds were to win their region, which means go to the final four. So do we want to? And we'll announce our upset brackets first, and then our
Upset
brackets
of
that we
the
think
Homer bracket,
the
right?
homer bracket. Yeah, the homer bracket, I guess we can call it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we can call. Then we could do our supposedly better brackets. I think it'd be also interesting if our homer bracket is better than our supposedly impartial bracket.
Yeah. So I mean,
Um,
you could also fill in brackets in a lot of different methods, I think, too. But we could do like a coin flip bracket. We just
that
like
might be
actually
good.
flip a coin for each game, and like
That
say,
might be good.
um,
Yeah,
you just define whichever one's on, top or bottom as like the heads or tails, whichever one you want to do it. Just follow through that
yeah.
one.
Or we could,
Look what
yeah. Or I think we
the
could do
book
something
says.
like a hybrid of coin flip versus like maybe we would say we only flip coins if it's a 12. We say that 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to win, but once we get to 5, 12, we flip coins,
Okay,
and then that would be like a. I think that could actually be a pretty good bracket.
so you do that one.
Okay, okay. So 13 through I'm gonna have every 13 through 16 lose in the first round.
Yeah.
For
So
5,
you're doing
12,
a hybrid
and
coin flip,
above.
and
Hybrid coin flip. You can do total coin flip,
I'll do regular coin flip.
and then we could see which we can kind of announce who's the leader as we go on. Which
But I think the idea is we'll set up a bunch of different brackets. And we'll see which methodology is most successful this season.
okay.
I think one of us should do a bracket filled out based on which mascots would win in a fight. But I think that would be entertaining. But then, because it's more about like what you think would happen in a fight between those two
And then
mascots.
you might end up with like Wildcat versus Wildcat. Do we have
Right.
a winner? I guess you'd have to
Yes.
look at me. Would you do this by looking at the person dressed up as the Wildcat? Would it
The
be would
actual like mascot that they use.
Yeah. So I would think you might not think this, but I would think that K-State's Willie the Wildcat could probably beat up the other Wildcats because simply he only has a head and he can use his human body to
Yeah.
wrestle more easily than a person in a suit.
Yeah.
But because he tends to also be a little more muscular, I think, than most of the
Yeah.
other Wildcat mascots because they're usually um, like probably smaller people that can fit in a suit and can do more acrobatic kind of tricks than Willie. Because if Willie did like a flip or something, his head would fall off because he has to like stay upright,
Yeah.
uh, things like that. I don't
Right.
know. That's my guess. Um, but maybe we should announce our let's do our upset. Are we not our upset? Our Homer bracket
Homer
final
Final
four.
Four.
I think yours might be more homery than mine because I was not as optimistic about my home teams as
You still had your Homer team in the Final Four, though,
I
right?
did. I did. Yes,
But you weren't gutsy enough to make your Homer win it, though. Your home
I
team
was not. I was not.
win.
I also had a home team maybe in Penn State. I thought would do okay, but I couldn't see them going to the Final
But
Four
you
even
have
in
them
my
beating
wildest
each
dreams.
other deep in the tournament.
Well, they Yeah, I couldn't see them going that far. I had it actually. I had
Because
them
they would
losing.
have to meet in the final. Is that what
Yeah,
it?
they would
Yeah,
have had to meet in the Final Four if I had Penn State versus Arkansas.
yeah.
And I actually had Penn State losing to your home team of Iowa State in the
Wow.
Sweet 16. So I I was
Not very. That's not very homery of you.
no, I don't feel that much connection to Penn State. I haven't been to a basketball game uh, here,
It's
but
more of a like applying some kind of logic to being a homer, though, which
I
is
am I am. I don't want to get my hopes up too high.
which is in itself like a pessimistic version of
Yes,
yeah.
whatever I do is it's acceptable. So
My homer bracket, my team did win, so
okay. So who are your final four?
I don't think it's likely, but
Or we can go by region, or you want us to go with your final four? Or do you want to just you can start with a region, I guess,
either way. Or how do
and
you?
I'll
If it's
correspond.
regional, I have to look to see which regions are which because
Oh, okay.
I
Let's not do
slowed
that.
them
Let's just do
down.
final four then.
Yeah. My homer bracket final four is Baylor, Duke, Iowa State, and St. Mary's.
Ooh, St. Mary's. What were their odds on each of those
Baylor
teams?
is plus 600, Duke plus 650, Iowa State plus 1500, St. Mary's plus 1,000.
Okay, so we'll also do this as part of our betting uh
Yeah.
competition. We'll each have 8 bets, one for our supposedly good bracket, one for our homer bracket, and we'll see which one of us wins more money, or which one of us probably likely loses less money. Um,
or
since
tie at $0 remaining.
yeah, that's what we hope. So okay, so you had those four. Um, I have Arkansas as my biggest upset win. You didn't pick Iowa State to go to the Final Four? You did. What was Iowa
Okay,
State's?
plus 1,500.
Was 1,500. Okay.
Worst odds of the.
Worst odds. My worst odds were Arkansas. They were plus 2,000. Then I did kind of a chalky pick, but thinking of them as a potential home team, thinking of them as joining the Big 12 next year, uh, and that is Houston at plus 135 to win their bracket. Houston also coached by Kelvin Sampson, the former Oklahoma head coach, as well. Then I had the other.
He had an interesting record at when he was a Big 12 coach before. Was that I believe this was told to me. I did not reference it though. I believe he never graduated a player.
Yeah, he's not a.
Yes, in his entire career at
I don't. Yeah, I don't think he's a professor type. Or
sorry for that interruption. Good.
that's okay. He was a pretty good coach at Oklahoma. If you just include his wins, he did not do so well in Indiana. I think he had some sort of scandal, and then he was out of college coaching for several years. Do you remember what the Kelvin Sampson scandal?
I don't. I can look it up though if you want to
Okay, you look it up, Paul. And
continue going
uh,
through your picks.
so I have Arkansas plus 2,000, Houston plus 135. I have Arizona plus 380. A little bit of nostalgia. I like seeing Arizona do well out of the in the tournament, and then I also had them playing against fellow Wildcat Final Four team Kansas State. So K State at plus 1,200, Arizona plus 380, uh, Houston plus 135,
Wolves
Arkansas
K
plus
State.
2,000. K State is plus 1,200,
It's 1,200. Oh.
which is pretty high for a third seed. I think so. Probably put that down right. I can uh, look it up real quick. I thought that's what I wrote.
February 22nd, 2008,
Yeah.
Sampson was forced to resign due to allegations of serious NCAA violations, which included sending text messages to recruits, which was something that was against the rules during his time
Oh,
there.
just a recruiting violation? So that's not really a big scandal. He wasn't Larry
And he
State.
received a 5-year penalty,
Oh,
apparently.
5-year
No
penalty.
cause penalty.
Well, I'm sure that's what you think Coach Bill Self should receive. I think perhaps you dislike University of Kansas basketball more than any other team,
I mean,
even perhaps more than the Denver Broncos.
most undeserving of the number one seeds by far.
And Bill Self perhaps had a heart attack. We don't know what happened. Uh, they said it was
They
not a
did
heart
they
attack.
did announce a little more, I guess, recently.
Yeah,
They said he had was having chest pains and difficulty with balance, and so they admitted him, and they did insert a couple of stints, I guess. But because he technically did not have a heart attack, but he was having symptoms that were
he
of
had a
that.
heart event or something like they like this. You,
So it was more of a semantics, yes.
as a
He didn't
euphemism.
technically have a
Yeah.
heart attack. He had a cardiovascular event.
Yeah, cardiovascular. So it wasn't just heart; it was the whole system. Uh,
Yes.
okay, so those are our Homer picks. Now let's look at our supposedly good bracket. Yeah, K State was plus 1,200, which was surprising. They are the
Yeah.
um, I think this one, two, three, four, five, sixth most likely team to win that bracket according to the odds makers. Kentucky is lower. I mean, lower seed. Duke is a lower seed. Tennessee is a lower seed, but they're all ahead of K State. Purdue and Marquette are number one.
Hmm.
Speaking of Purdue, in my supposedly good bracket, I have Purdue winning their region. They're plus 300. I double dipped with Houston in both brackets.
Ooh.
They are plus 135. So if I win Houston once, I will get it twice.
Yeah.
Or if I lose it, I guess I will lose it twice. I can't split that one.
Nope.
I also have Baylor at plus 600, and then Gonzaga at plus 400. I don't usually like Gonzaga, but I decided also to go against my kind of type here and see if I could do that. I um I like Baylor, but I think Baylor's kind of having a down year compared to like a few years ago. But I still think they have a good tournament kind of team. I thought at least one Big 12 team would make it, and kind of by process elimination that ended up being Baylor. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess you can say Houston's future Big 12, but I thought I thought Kansas might have a shot, but I don't think with Bill Self's coaching and maybe just their play over the last several weeks. And I hope K State does. I just don't think they probably have the team for it. Texas, I don't think will be Houston, even though I think they're pretty good. And so I think that leaves Baylor, even though Iowa State has Baylor's number on the season.
3-0.
Did you pick Iowa State in the Final Four both times?
I did not. My realistic bracket was very chalky. Three ones and a two, Mike. That's unlikely, but
I had two ones, two threes, no twos.
ooh, interesting.
So
It's
if we add them up, you have a total of five. I
yes,
have a total of eight. So pretty low
pretty low. Yeah.
numbers, pretty high average by seeding ordinally.
Yes.
Low cardinally, high ordinally.
Yes.
Let's hear your teams.
So my chalky bracket then is Alabama plus 150, Purdue plus 300. I did pick Texas at this one, plus 350. And in similar fashion, picking a team that you don't really like, but expect to go deep into the tournament, I did pick Kansas plus 330.
Ooh, you picked Kansas in the Final Four. Interesting. That's a surprise.
But then I had them, losing to Texas again. So
Would
Texas beat them twice in the
you
last
did you have Texas winning the whole thing?
my serious bracket. I do have Texas winning it. Yes. Who'd you have winning it?
I think I have Gonzaga actually winning it because
Really?
yeah, they're playing Baylor again in the final for me,
Yeah.
and I thought maybe they'll get revenge on Baylor from a couple years ago.
Because I have Texas over Alabama in the final in that one, and I have Iowa State
See,
over Baylor in the Homer bracket.
see, I have Houston over Arizona in the what ended up really not being a homer bracket for me, but it was homer up to a point. And by then it's like, what's the best team that's left? And
Well, it's a like David Lynch film where a thing happens and then the second half of the film is nothing to do with the first half.
I suppose, yeah,
Is
yeah,
that how you describe it?
yeah. I kind of wanted to, yeah, I wanted to. It's a little weird because I don't know. I think Houston over Arizona, I think is more likely final game matchup than Gonzaga over Baylor, but I kind of split the difference in these. Yeah, the final four, I went I went upsets in the final four in my supposedly better bracket, and I went chalk in the final four in my not as good bracket. So
It's kind of just like you throw a big, wrench into the beginning of the bracket and then clean it up at the end, I guess is what.
yeah, and then we'll have to do our crazy other brackets,
Yeah.
the coin flip one, the hybrid coin flip, the chalk bracket, the mascot bracket. We can talk about these off the air over the next couple of days before Thursday's games, and then we can report back to our many, many, many viewers or listeners, which however they prefer, to access our award-winning
But,
podcast.
but we will not let them join
No,
our
this is the most
for
exclusive
us.
uh, uh, group that you can have, and
You'd think
we're
we'd
calling it a group
ask for
because there are at least
interaction.
two people. So I know you. I don't know if you have been, but I have been on the ESPN in a one person group before, just so I could monitor my bracket without having to talk to anybody or see anybody else's. But this year, I think the last several seasons, I've been a one person group actually.
Yeah. You don't join like one of the show
Random.
groups or something?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I used to. There were like Quiz Bowl or Learned League groups maybe that I was in like before, but I haven't for a while, and I haven't invited anybody to a group uh for a while.
You do like a lot of
I used to at Yale. I did
reference or something.
friends that were in it, and we did. I think in high school we had like a pool that we ran.
May or may not have run. Statute of limitations is probably over, but because they were technically illegal, right?
I think it was like $1 entry fee though, so I think whatever crime it would be so low that it would not matter. And we were minors at the time, so I think
Yeah.
most of the time, maybe not in our senior year, many of us would have turned 18 by then, but still minors when it comes to gambling age because you have to be 21 to gamble, right? Still, or is it?
Sports gambling is still not legal in Missouri, so
So I don't know. Yeah, um, but even though it might not be technically legal in Missouri, we will still have our fake gambling, which has never uh, really been illegal. I don't think imitation gambling has ever
yeah.
been illegal. But we'll see how much we win and whether our methods prove sound or whether one of the kind of alternative methods proves to be the best one this year. And I think on that note, we should probably wrap things up.
Like
It's
so.
getting to be
Absurdly late at this point.
absurdly late. Yeah, it's 2 a.m. Eastern time. I couldn't start until very late tonight, and Dr. Scaff uh, cordially stayed up with me. And I guess it doesn't quite seem as late because we had daylight savings time
Yeah.
start. So really, it's only one. It's really
Yeah.
it's only midnight in Kansas City. It's only 1 a.m. here in
Well,
State
yeah.
College,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania,
Right.
uh, according to standard time. But we still need to wrap things up. And when you're listening to it, I wonder if our listeners or viewers what times they usually watch this. Do you think most of them are staying up really late because they're insomniac, uh, and want to fall asleep to something that's really really boring? They want to listen to our dulcet tones, uh, kind of uh, soothe them to sleep, or they listen to this during the workday too, or in the car to just avoid talking to anyone else. So it's a I don't know. I wonder. Uh, I know how I listen to us. That's usually in the car, but I like to listen to our podcasts, see how they sound, how big of an idiot I sound.
You wait, yeah. Do you wait till after the sporting events that we're talking about that are in the future when we talk about them to see how we do?
Sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah,
that didn't age well from 3 days
yeah,
ago.
yeah. Actually, it hasn't been quite as bad as I thought. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see what happens with March Madness. I think I have paid less attention to college basketball this year than I have. It seems like each year, the last several years, I've paid less and less attention to college basketball. So it hasn't really hurt my brackets that much. I don't
Yeah.
think. Uh, I yeah. There's
You
a.
haven't paid so little attention to it that you didn't fill out a bracket.
I'm sure I missed or was late like once or twice.
Really?
Yeah, I think like oh it's Thursday already. I was gonna start, but like oh it's you know yeah
Man.
it's pathetic really. On that note, yeah call it quits. But I hope you guys don't call it quits this week because hopefully your favorite basketball team wins and advances to the Sweet 16 by the time of our next broadcast. And I'm sure we'll have even more interesting analysis and review and predictions for you then. So until next week, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel. We have many delivery options available, both AV and A. And I bid you good day.